day, good evening. Bracing for impact. This week a friend sent me a clip of a elementary school teacher educating her students that because we have professional athletes who have started with nothing and ended up mega rich, because we have some celebrities who've started with nothing and ended up mega rich, that there's no excuse why they couldn't start with nothing and end up mega rich. We are moving into a society, thanks to the Trump era, the DeSantis, the Rubio era, the Clarence Thomas era, where people ignore racism, racial discrimination, generational wealth, and how all of these things are factors into the success of individuals. Now, if the educator had said, you do not allow these things to cause you to sit on your laurels and not do your very best to overcome those circumstances, to fight against those circumstances, I would have been fine. I would have applauded that, because I firmly believe that even if you are not totally successful in overcoming all of the barriers, and we all don't start in the same starting line, and the reality is we're all not going to overcome them. But if you reach for the stars, you might grab the moon. And the next generation will go further. You don't just stay in the circumstances that you are. You try to propel ahead so that everyone does a little bit better as they stand on the preceding person's shoulders. But the thing that makes Blacks of African descent here in America distinct from other Blacks around the world of African descent is that we've had a civil rights movement here. We've had the acknowledgement and discussions about slavery and its impact, Jim Crow laws and its impact, racism and discrimination and its impact on Blacks here in America, their ability to generate generational wealth, And I find it not strange that a lot of this is occurring right when, for the very first time, a large number of us are able to generate generational wealth. For the first time, we have a large number where people my age, in their 50s and 60s, are inheriting properties from their parents, passing these properties on to our children, who are starting off without a mortgage, just having to worry about paying taxes, and they still have us to act as a support system. Starting out, owning property allows one to invest in businesses, education, which then allows the entire family to propel forward in a much faster rate than they would if it's the very first generation that's owning property, that's still paying for that mortgage. It's not lost on me that when you look around the globe at places where there are Blacks of African descent, where racism is not discussed, where there was no civil rights movement, the Blacks are doing substantially worse than everyone else in society. They don't have the same access to education, the same opportunities in the arts. You may have breakout stars in the sports world, and depending upon the country, because in some, if the hue of your skin is dark, you will not be on the screen. Neither the silver nor the television. And others, precious few. No one wants today's generation to feel guilt over what their ancestors did. But one has to acknowledge the past. You can't whitewash it. And it's infuriating that people are are silent. Silence speaks volumes. Because I will tell you this. When they come for me, and they've killed and destroyed me, they're coming for you next. And when I'm not here, who's there to help stop them from coming for you? Don't get comfortable. Don't think you've won the golden ticket in Charlie's Chocolate Factory. Great strategists tick off one enemy at a time. They don't come for all the enemies at the same time. And alliances are alliances until it's time to then pick you off. And then you see how people have truly felt about you the entire time. This society is sleeping. People need to wake up and see things for what they are. Stop giving excuses. There's no rationale on God's green earth that you're going to convince me that this man, who is a self-proclaimed billionaire, has nothing to factually back it up, has fought for years to keep anyone from being able to see anything that would substantiate or prove those claims to be false, who has filed bankruptcy multiple times, is a great businessman, and therefore would do good by the country. Call a spade a spade. People voted for him because as they see black and brown and yellow and orange and all the colors of the rainbow doing better financially, they felt threatened. Because the thing about having power is people talk about wanting to have a world where we share and it's equally divided and people get what they earn and work for. But here's the thing. If you start out in a world where really no one has power, but those who are working towards it start gaining it, that's one thing. But that's not the case. We have a world where certain people have had power for a long time. And when others start gaining generational wealth, start gaining political clout and prowess and power, that means you are moving things from one side towards the center. But as you move something from one side towards the center, that means that someone else is giving up some of that. And anyone that's been in this world for a couple of decades should have learned by now that it's not easy for people to give up power. It doesn't matter if someone has earned it. Those in power tend to want to stay in power. And that's a human condition. Now you mix that with leftists that are racist, with fear of what's going to happen to us when more people become more successful and we don't see how we're going to be competitive in this new world. And it's clear to see where the fear is coming from. And if it's one thing history has taught us, colonizers are at their very worst when they're afraid. There's no benevolence, there's no grace when they're fearful. I've just gotten used to not having to turn on the television and see a president in the news every day with some sort of scandal, saying this, saying that, both sides are good people on both sides, and all this other malarkey. And now we have to brace for impact and get ready as he starts to run again. And his good old boys feel emboldened once again, re-energized. It's not that we thought racism completely went away, because it hasn't. It was just more undercurrent. Open acts of it were frowned upon. And we're moving to a society where that's no longer the case. In the new Trump era, the new DeSantis era, the new Rubio era. And I'm going to leave you with one last thing. The group that benefited the absolute most from the civil rights movement is actually women. But as many Caucasian women get their status from their husbands, they don't mind turning a blind eye and sacrificing their individual gains and freedoms for that of their family, if it means pushing other groups down. That has been evident in the way they vote. Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good evening.